Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. Today is another one of those days where I quite literally just don't have enough time to cover everything that's been developing. Which seems to be like most days. There's just so much happening with XRP developers building on top of the ledger. Cannot keep up unless I were to turn this into my full-time job, which I'm not actually going to do. It's just a fun hobby. But nonetheless, I'm going to cover everything I can here today, and here's my first video for Monday. Take a look at this piece. Ripple announces funding round in Mexico's largest Bitcoin and crypto exchange with expansion into South America using XRP. Key point there. I've also got a piece from, here we go. Oh yeah, here's the last thing I'm going to cover. A lot of what I'm going to cover in this video, frankly, it's centered around Bitso and a piece written by Ashish Birla. He's a senior vice president of, is it product? I want to say. One of these days I'm going to remember it, but he's a senior vice president at Ripple. And I'm going to wrap up the video with a piece from CoinDesk that I just found fascinating. It's unrelated. 5 top car makers enter field trials for automatic blockchain payments. Now, before we get rolling here, if you would please delicately tap that like button, and if you are a fan of Ripple and XRP, thank you so much, sir or madam, for stopping by. I do appreciate all of the support. So let's dig into the first piece here. Ripple announces funding round in Mexico's largest Bitcoin and crypto exchange with expansion into South America using XRP. San Francisco-based fintech firm Ripple is leading the Series A2 investment round in Mexico's largest digital asset exchange, Bitso, according to an announcement released today. Ashish Birla, Senior Vice President of Product at Ripple. Hey, yeah, there we go. I was right. Senior Vice President of Product at Ripple. Will be joining Bitso's board of directors and will support the exchange as it expands into new regions, including Argentina and Brazil. And by the way, wait until I tell you about the early days of how Ashish Birla met these Bitso guys here. I talked about it one other time on the channel, and I'm bringing it up again in this video. It's a fascinating story. Wait, here's a quote from Ashish. Technologies like blockchain and digital assets could transform the remittance landscape by making it easier, quicker, and cheaper to send money across borders. At Ripple, we are building new rails and working with our infrastructure partners to make this future a reality. And then the piece continues, founded in 2014, Bitso is the first crypto exchange launched in Mexico and one of Ripple's key business partners. The exchange has more than 750,000 users and provides a platform for trading Bitcoin with the Mexican peso. Bitso is opening up the U.S.-Mexico trading corridor by using Ripple's on-demand liquidity offering, which, in case you hadn't heard yet, on-demand liquidity is now the term that is replacing XRAPID. So nomenclature is indeed changing, throwing out XCurrent, throwing out XVIA, and throwing out XRAPID. It's now just RippleNet, which encompasses all of the technology, and specifically if you're utilizing XRP as a bridge currency for cross-border payments, that is on-demand liquidity, ODL. And as people in the community are saying now, and it's so perfect, hodl your ODL. Come on, that's perfect, right? Hodl your ODL. Your on-demand liquidity being XRP, of course, right? And so, again, this is one of the most key rails that Ripple has just begun working on, specifically for, payments flows from the United States into Mexico, and then the other key one that's been announced, United States into Philippines, and so it's being built out, and new corridors, of course, indeed being developed here. All right, and this is a piece from AMB Crypto, pretty much covering the same thing. Why is this so zoomed in? This keeps happening to me lately. Anyway, but yeah, Ripple, Coinbase invest in Bitso exchange. Bitso as exchange looks beyond Mexico. The Mexico-based Bitso cryptocurrency exchange has raised an undisclosed sum with the investments led by Ripple, Coinbase, and Jump Capital in addition to its existing investors, Digital Currency Group and Pantera Capital. The official announcement mentioned that Ripple is excited to announce that we are leading an investment round in Bitso, the leading exchange in Latin America, according to a source. Daniel Vogel, Bitso's co-founder and CEO, welcomed the investment and said, quote, "The region, Argentina and Brazil, among other Latin American nations, is ready for disruption, and we want to be the ones to do so by radically advancing financial inclusion everywhere." And then the piece continues, the move to expand to Latin America is justified given that 70% of Latin America's population, which is over 400 million people, cannot access any banking privileges. Moreover, the Argentinian government had recently imposed restrictions on the U.S. dollar, purchases in an effort to revive Argentine peso's value in the global market. And for those of you that aren't aware, and I can't remember the stats off the top of my head, but the Argentine peso, very recent, within the last 2-3 years, whatever it was, it lost, I don't know if it was like 80% of its value. It was something extraordinary. You could do a quick Google just to figure out what the numbers if you're that curious, but it just lost a massive amount of its value. And I remember Brad Garlinghouse talking about it at one point in an interview probably close to 2 years ago, and he was highlighting how leaving dormant capital in accounts is truly risky, especially for just how do you want to phrase it? Fiat currencies that are in more exotic corridors. Maybe not first world country fiat, but that's basically what he was getting at. And it was a real world example of how there's just a better way of doing this by eliminating or at least dramatically reducing the need for nostro vostro accounts. Anyway, the piece continues. The Brazilian market has also been hit with a recession due to a mix of high unemployment, weak investments, and global slowdown. Interestingly enough, other crypto exchanges, including Huobi and Binance, have hinted at expanding their services to Latin America in the near future. Ripple's SVP of Product Management, Ashish Burla, added, actually, I don't need to read that quote. There actually is another quote that I want to share with you in a second in a piece that Ashish wrote. Actually, I should probably just hop over that. And you can see, here's a quote, a tweet from him today. Excited to announce Ripple's investment in Bitso. Our partnership goes back to 2014, and we're honored to support their next stage of growth as they expand in Latin. And so here's the piece. Came out today. It's by Ashish Burla, titled Our Investment in Bitso. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I do want to read this part right here. Ripple's partnership with Bitso starts at the beginning. I met the team back in 2014 and saw the technology they had built and thought, this 4-person shop is able to send money across borders with technology faster than big banks. That's incredible. It reminded me of sending my first email instantly to a friend across the world. This innovative company plays a vital role in RippleNet's US-Mexico corridor by providing critical liquidity for payments. Earlier this year, Ripple launched on-demand liquidity, ODL, capabilities with MoneyGram into Mexico, with Bitso as the key exchange partner. As Ripple expands ODL in Latin America, so too will our partnership with Bitso. And this is just a for fun thing, so that was all awesome information written up directly by Ashish Burla. And I mentioned it's just one other video, but this is genuinely fascinating because crypto's young, right? Go back a decade ago, there were no Goliath companies in the space, period. And so in Mexico, again, the first exchange, 2014, was developed, right? So obviously, at the beginning, rather small, right? And so Ashish, in a recent interview, he talked about how he went to visit the corporate headquarters of Bitso, the Mexican exchange. And they're just the very beginnings of a business relationship. He shows up, and it turns out he shows up in Mexico from the U.S. in San Francisco, where, of course, Ripple's headquarters, shows up in Mexico, and the address is a house. And then, so the few people running this, they were running Bitso out of someone's mother's basement in Mexico. That is awesome. I just think that's the coolest story to go from that to this. They're massive at this point. What was the number I read? 750,000 people, have actually have accounts on Bitso. It's absolutely massive. Now you're talking about MoneyGram's payment flows going through Bitso. And 5 years ago, this was in somebody's mother's basement. It was a startup. I just think that's the coolest story on the planet. And look what's happening in crypto. So, look, as much as we think that things are moving slow in the world of crypto, look what they did in 5 years. This is all being built from scratch. So, sometimes I feel like, okay, I just need to be more patient. It's all from your perspective if things are going too fast or not fast enough. So there you go. All right, check out this. I just wanted to share this thread. It's unrelated, but this is from Anthony Pompliano, co-founder of Morgan Creek Digital. And he tweeted this out, and I want to share some thoughts. There's a very short Twitter thread between him and Eric Dadoun. So Pomp tweets out, Bitcoin mining is one of the greatest drivers for the development of renewable energy globally. And I read that, and it's one of those things where it kind of made me like cock my head and go, Like, what? And so Eric Dadoun responded, and he had more than a split second to think of a response. And so here's what he said, and it kind of rang true to me. He wrote, that's like saying gun violence is the biggest driver of innovation in bulletproof vests. That's good. Why not just use protocols that aren't energy intensive? To which Pompliano responded, Bitcoin isn't energy intensive compared to other forms of money. Okay. And Eric Danoon responded with exactly what was in line with my rational train of thought here, because I do feel like Pomp's a smart guy and I like him, but to me, this train of thought he has in this particular thread, I respectfully state, it is a non sequitur, completely irrational, no logic whatsoever. Right? And so anyway, Eric Danoon responded, sure, but it is energy intensive in comparison to other crypto. I'm not a fiat maximalist, don't worry. Which is also comical. I love it. It's true. It's just like zing, zing. Eric's nailed it here. And then Pomp wrote, in response to that, the market is the greatest judge, and so if a better model exists, the market will ultimately determine something else to be more valuable. Until that happens, the market is telling you that you are misunderstanding what is actually valuable. And I read that, and I firmly disagreed. And this is one of those things where normally I just have to sit here and explain my train of thought, but again, Eric jumps in just nailing exactly what I instantly thought on my own. So I can just read his tweet. Eric responded to that and wrote, the market will decide. We are on the same page there. Where we disagree is that the deciding factor long term will not be a market driven by speculation. In my view, a real utility will win the day, which of course is my entire investment thesis. So of course that rings true to me. But yeah, so like Pomp responded there and he wrote, Bitcoin has more on-chain volume than any other blockchain or token. So you're right. The most used cryptocurrency is currently being deemed the most valuable. Oh, that's completely misreading the situation. And so Eric wrote, my debate isn't what's currently deemed valuable. My debate is whether those views are misguided and what will prove scalable long term. Anyways, long bulletproof vests. So it was a fine exchange, and I enjoyed reading through that. I hope you enjoyed listening. But the truth of the matter is, in terms of adoption, recognize now, and this is just my opinion, but there's a frenzy around the technology. And so, yes, Bitcoin was first. It's got the name recognition, but it's prototype technology, frankly, that doesn't work and belongs in a museum with dusty objects, okay? Or if it's a fine museum, maybe they dust the objects carefully so as to not harm them in their fragile states here. But it makes no sense to me to think that just because people don't know what's going on with crypto and keep throwing money into it, that it actually makes sense given that there's no utility. And so it just goes back to, will utility win the day? From my perspective, the answer is a firm yes. All right, let's hop into this last piece now. 5 top car makers enter field trials for automatic blockchain payments. A group of major automakers are about to hit the road with the first field testing of a blockchain-based vehicle identification network next month in the United States. As reported by Nikkei Asian Review, BMW, GM, Honda, Ford, and Renault are working with the Mobility Open Blockchain Initiative, MOBI, on integrating the system to automatically make payments on typical commuting runs without the need for cash or credit and debit cards. By assigning vehicles unique identities that store data such as ownership and histories on a blockchain, the industry initiative aims to remove the need for a human when settling tolls and parking fees. Founded in May 2018 by multiple major car manufacturers, Mobi has been working to enable the sharing of road data between manufacturers, a step forward developing self-driving cars. As Nikkei writes, participating vehicles would eventually be able to automatically pay expenses once plugged into other networks, such as charging or refueling stations. Mobi is also looking into incorporating cryptocurrencies. One such system involved compensating users in crypto for putting energy back into the power grid following an outage. A number of automakers are looking at blockchain for facilitating processes such as payments and data sharing, especially for the not-so-distant future where automated vehicles have become the norm. So I found this fascinating. Either you're going to think this is super invasive and creepy or very forward-thinking and awesome. So I'm more on the side of development. I'm not exactly afraid of self-driving cars. I'm afraid of humans barreling down the highway at 30 miles per hour over the speed limit, recklessly swerving without turn signals. I'm more concerned about that. So give me the self-driving cars, give me easy forms of payment for all this stuff. Hey, let's just let's progress as a species. So that's fine. But anyway, that's it for this video. I am not a financial advisor. Do not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo!